What's goody? Hey man, so like I promised y'all, bro, we are here with my bold predictions for next season. In this video, we're only going to do 4 of them. I did want to make my bold predictions bold enough to where I think a couple of them, or at least a couple of them, are unlikely to happen, but I also didn't want to make my bold predictions so bold that I'm kind of just sitting here clickbaiting or just saying stupid stuff just for the point of it being a bold take or getting views or anything like that. So I did not want any of these takes to be that, so that's why there's not a whole bunch of them. It's only 4 takes. So yeah, let's go ahead, let's get into this. So first one, we're going to start out really hot. I want to go ahead and piss a bunch of people off right once this video starts. I've got the Atlanta Hawks missing the play-in completely. Yep, not even a top 10 seed for the Atlanta Hawks, who, man, I know, dude. I know y'all are mad. I know the Hawks are a team that has a lot of good players. I know the Hawks are a team that have a good amount of depth. I know the Hawks are a team that gave the defending champion New York Knicks more of a fight in the playoffs than any other team, but for some reason, dude, I am just so low on this Hawks team, and I think there are a few reasons for that, but at the same time, I want to make something clear, right? When I'm saying that the Hawks might not be a play-in team completely and I don't have them making the play-in, I want to be very clear. I don't think the Hawks are about to be god-awful. I don't think the Hawks are about to be, even if the Hawks finishes the 11th seed, I do not think we are going to be looking at the Hawks as them being on the same tier as the Bulls, the Bucks, the Nets, and whoever else, right? I do not believe that's going to happen. I do think the Hawks are a solid team, and I do think that no matter what happens with their final standing or whatever, I think this will be a team that we look at and say, yeah, at the very minimum, they have some decent pieces. They're not god-awful. I want to make that clear. I don't think this team's going to get 15 wins. And even if they end up being the 11th seed, I think it's more about the teams in front of them than it is about them as a whole, right? Because when I look at the Eastern Conference, and the play-in is 10 teams, only 8 teams that get to the playoffs, right? So let's say I'm saying they missed the play-in completely. The reason that I don't think that is crazy isn't because I think the Hawks are so bad. It's because I think the East is so good. I have worries about the Hawks that we're going to get into in a second. But when I look at the Eastern Conference, and I've said this before, and I look at the rosters in the East, and I look at the names on those rosters, I see at least 8 rosters in the Eastern Conference that I like just a little bit more than I like the Hawks than I like the Hawks right this instant. And if we look at rosters where it's like by the end of the season, I could see myself liking them by the Hawks, or I like the potential they have more than the potential the Hawks have. It's a whole bunch of rosters, dude. Like, I'm looking at the NBA, right? And when I look at the Eastern Conference, there's no way you can sit here and be 100% confident and tell me the Hawks are going to be better than the Celtics. Could it be possible? Because I think the Celtics low-key will be a little worse due to other factors like Jason Tatum coming off an injury versus Jaylen Brown being fully healthy than they were last year. And I know, dude, I already know. I'm preparing myself for the Tatum discourse as a guy that's been the biggest Jason Tatum's better than Jaylen Brown, the biggest Jason Tatum's the top 5 player, the NBA guy since he came into the league. I know I'm going to get blitzed in this season when the Celtics are not as good this year as they were last year. I know. But even with that being the case, can you sit here and confidently tell me the Hawks are going to be better than the Celtics? I don't think so. Can you sit here and confidently tell me the Hawks will be better than the Knicks, the 76ers, the Raptors? That's 4 teams. In one division, I've already got 4 teams that I think pretty much every single NBA fan, assuming the Kawhi Leonard trade goes through and Jason Tatum doesn't get hurt, will be better. Thinks will be better than the Hawks. Then we go to the Central Division. The Cavs, I think, could be better than the Hawks. The Pistons, I think, could be better than the Hawks. The Pacers, I think, could be better than the Hawks. That division is the one where I think is the most coulds, right? Because, like, the Pacers, could Tyrese Halliburton come back and be his former self? Yes, and that's what I hope happens. But could also the opposite of that happen? Yes, it's very possible. The Cavaliers, yeah, they just made the conference finals, but I think all of us believe the Cavaliers are a little bit of a worse team right now than they were at this time last year. So, sure, I think they'll be better than the Hawks, but could it be possible that the Hawks win more games than them, or that the Hawks are a little bit more of a complete team than them? Absolutely. It's really just the top names of those top 4 names, and those top 4 names have never really led to anything crazy happening, so who really cares about the names? The Pistons. Of all the teams I just mentioned in this Central Division, I am most confident that the Pistons will finish with a better regular season record than the Hawks, because Cade Cunningham is just that damn good. But you can't sit here and tell me that like, that's not 100% either, right? So I don't want to sit here and pretend like I'm 100% convinced the Hawks will be out of the play-in, because a lot of these teams, it's kind of like a 50-50 thing, or it's like a 75-25 thing, or a 60-40, where it's like, yeah, I think the Pistons, Cavs, and Pacers are better than the Hawks, but I don't think it's definitive, right? But then we go to the Southeast, and I look at their own division, and I say, well, the Heat got Giannis, the Magic still have Paolo and Franz, the Wizards got Trae Young, Anthony Davis, and AJ DeBonsa, and the Hornets, while they did get worse this season, they had their most, at least on paper, they had their most promising season in a long time last year, and they still have a lot of young guards, and Brandon Miller's a guy who I'm a really big fan of, and I think will have a phenomenal year this year. So you look at teams in the Eastern Conference, and I only skipped over 3 teams when talking about teams that could potentially be better than the Hawks. There's 15 teams in the East, and I can look at 12, or I can look at 11 of them. 11 of them, and I can say, yeah, I could realistically say I could see them being better than the Hawks. In fact, I would probably bet my money on at least 9 of them being better than the Hawks. Because when I look at these rosters and when I look at the coaching staffs and I look at these things, I'm like, yeah, there's just no way, right? Barring injury, there's just no way. Because then you look at the Hawks roster, and this is where we really want to talk about the Hawks, because I've talked about the East and why I think the East is a big problem, but let's talk about the actual Hawks roster and why I just don't believe in it. For one, I'm not the biggest Jalen Johnson fan, and I want to preface that by saying I don't think Jalen Johnson's awful. I don't think Jalen Johnson was undeserving of being All-NBA or All-Star last year or anything like that. I just don't think he can be the – I just don't think, from what I've seen with him right now, with what he looked like in the playoffs last season, that he is a guy that is ready to be the 1A leader on a team that's really trying to compete for playoff wins, right? Like, people are predicting that the Hawks will be one of those teams that even in a deeper East will be a top 6 seed. So that means there's no way you can tell me that they're just 100% going to be a first round exit. If you're that confident they could be better than some of these other teams with better rosters, there's no way you're telling me, yeah, but then they're only just going to be a first round exit. That's not what their goal is. That's not why they traded Zachary Richardson to get Lou Dort. That's not why they did those things. It's not why they traded for CJ McCollum, who's old, and re-signed a CJ McCollum, who's old. That's not why they did that. They did that because they believe in this roster. They saw themselves give the Knicks a fight, and they believe they can win multiple playoff series. They probably believe they can win at least one playoff series, right? But I just don't believe in the same thing, right? Because I'm not the biggest Jalen Johnson guy, and then I worry about the guard depth on this team. I know everybody loves the depth on this team, and everyone's talking about how this is a deep team with solid basketball players, and to an extent it is. But your starters at the guard spot are 32-year-old CJ McCollum and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. While I like both of those players, 32 years old is always a worry, and I don't think CJ McCollum's got the type of play style where he's really going to regress a whole bunch, but you never really know. Regression and progression are not linear for any player. It's not the same thing for any player. We go to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I like him too, but he's only had one real season where he's been a real scorer and where he's been a real focal point for defenses. So I do wonder now, okay, you're going to be getting, if not the best, and the second best perimeter defender every single night. No matter what now. No matter what. Like, that's going to be the game plan going into the game. Will you still be able to average 20? I think he could, but what if he doesn't? Then where is the scoring going to come from that he was providing last year if his scoring does take a drop? And then behind those guys, really the only person that you have that you really believe in is Kingston Flemings, who's still only a rookie, so there's obviously questions there. And then I think the biggest thing with me is I genuinely believe we saw the ceiling of this team last year. And I think a lot of other people are kind of looking at last season and what they did as more of a building point or a starting point rather than a ceiling, and I can see why you'd think that. Because of a young piece like a Jalen Johnson who could get better, and a Onyeka Okongwu who could get better, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker who, like I said, just jumped onto the scene, so could that have just been his coming out party and he's got a whole nother step to hit rather than him regressing? Absolutely, it's possible. Could Kingston Flemings come in and be a phenomenal point guard as a rookie? Absolutely, he could. Could Lou Dort have another 40% from 3 year where you don't really worry about the shooting in the starting lineup quite as much because you have that catch and shoot threat there all the time? Absolutely he could. But then the opposite of that could happen too. You know what I mean? And that's just the thing for me, is where I think it's a lot more likely that, yeah, Lou Dort has a bad season and Dyson Daniels has a bad season and CJ McCollum looks 32 rather than 28 and Kingston Flemings looks like a rookie much more than a polished player. You know what I mean? Like, I think those things are way more likely than us seeing the absolute best version of this Hawks team. And that's why I'm just really not a big believer in this Hawks team, man. So yeah, enough negativity with the Hawks and everything like that, because I don't want Hawks fans to think I hate them or I hate their team or anything like that. It's just, I don't look at this team and see the same ceiling that a lot of other people do, but at the same time, please remember, I'm not trying to say they're going to be the Kings, right? They're not, but I don't think they're going to be giving the Knicks that big of a fight. Well, they could give the Knicks a fight, but I don't think they're going to be giving the future champion that big of a fight this year. Next, we have the OKC Thunder, and my bold prediction is that the OKC Thunder do not finish as a top 2 seed out west, and I'm not really sure how hot of a take this is, right? Because I'm only saying that they're not going to finish as a top 2 seed when, like, the odds are, you know what I mean? Odds are that's not a hot take. Just based on the actual odds of the 15 teams in the NBA and only 2 of them being able to finish in the top 2, it's very likely that I'm correct. But in the last 3 years, the Thunder have been the 1 seed in every single year, led mostly by the back-to-back MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But I do think that streak ends here, and I do think the Thunder are in for just a little bit of regular season regression this year. Again, let me know in the comments if y'all think that's a hot take or not, but let me tell you why I think they're in for a little bit of regular season regression here. And some of these things are things we talked about before, right? But, for example, just to start it off, San Antonio is here, right? They dominated OKC in the regular season last year. I think they won 4 of the 5 matchups or 3 of the 4 matchups or something like that. And then in the playoffs, they beat them with De'Aaron Fox that wasn't doing much and Dylan Harper looking like the second best player on that team, even as a 19-year-old rookie. And then beyond that, you have the Minnesota Timberwolves, who that's a team that I'm really high on. Don't get me wrong. Could the regular season not be as great because they've got to deal with a LaMelo Ball and bringing in LaMelo Ball and figuring out how that's going to work on the court for sure. But I don't think that that's the type of piece where it's like going to be as difficult to work in as it is in Philly, right? Where you've got 2 all-NBA, all-time players that are joining your team at the same time with one of them in his prime while you still have other all-star guys in their prime as well. This isn't like that. It's really you're adding a phenomenal guard that plays in a way that fits your team alongside already having another phenomenal guard. So there's no way you can sit here and be 100% sure that OKC is going to be better than Minnesota in the regular season because I'm not 100% sure of that. And then you have other teams, right? There's Houston, there's Denver, there's even the LA Lakers, who I think all have very high regular season ceilings, especially if guys like Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic go out there and have MVP level seasons. There's no way you can sit here and tell me that those won't be at least 50-win teams if those guys are both playing like MVPs in the way that we expect them to. Anthony Edwards, top 5 player in basketball. He's going to be playing with a true high-volume playmaking point guard for the first time in his career. That team still projects to have a high floor defensively. When we look at the Nuggets, yeah, it's Nikola Jokic, but it's Nikola Jokic and not a lot else, but he still does have a shooter in Cam Johnson who you know is going to shoot 40% from 3, a defender in Aaron Gordon who, when healthy, is at least a solid defender, Christian Brown, who you pray cannot be as bad as he was last year, and Jamal Murray, who is always a good second option and is coming off the best season of his career, at least offensively. That's a scary team. You have Luka, who's playing with the defensive-minded center and a team that at least has some offensive upside. While it's not the scariest team in the world, it's a team that I could see winning a lot of regular season games. And then the Houston Rockets, a team that won, I think, 56 games last year or something like that. And then they go into the playoffs, they disappoint. Kevin Durant misses most of that series and everything like that. Cool. But this year, they have Fred VanVleet back. You can't sit here and tell me that that's not a team that couldn't. There's no way that team goes for 60 wins. Especially when we look at OKC, right? And I look at OKC and they did lose guys this offseason, right? You have J-Dub, who missed a lot, like the vast majority of last season because of his injury. You remember the last time we saw Chet, he looked awful against Wemby in the playoffs. And then you did lose guys like Lou Dort, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, and all of those guys, while they're not the biggest household names, they are rotational pieces that matter when it comes to getting regular season wins, that matter when it comes to how you're going to have depth in the regular season, that matters to what happens when F an injury happens in the regular season, right? So just don't get me wrong. With Shai, with OKC's defense, with J-Dub, with Chet, with everything they still have, you still have an AJ Mitchell, you still have a Jared McCain, you still have Mark Dayton as the coach. This team will be one of the best teams out west, and this team will win 50 games. But I think we don't see them take that number 1 seed this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're not even the 2 seed. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like 1 game below Minnesota or 1 game below somebody else. You know what I mean? I could very well see that. And I thought I had 4 of them in this video, but I guess I only have 3, so that's my bad for, you know what I mean? Oh, wait, no. I do have 4. I just accidentally deleted 1. Okay. Third, and this is kind of in line with the last one that we were just talking about, I have Anthony Edwards finishing top 2 in MVP voting. You're going to say, well, damn, if you're going to say he's going to finish top 2, you might as well say he's going to win. My thing is, like I said, I didn't want these predictions to be so bold that they're unrealistic or so unrealistic that they're clickbaity. You know what I mean? So while I do think Anthony Edwards can finish top 2 in MVP, and obviously if you can finish top 2, you can win, I just think it's a little bit of a stretch to pick him to win when I think about the field, right? You have a Wemby who almost won it last year at, year 3 in the league, his first real fully healthy season. He just almost won it last year. You have Shai, who is coming off back-to-back MVP wins. You have Jokic, who has already won 3. You have Luka, who's still going to be a guy that's going to be putting up the numbers that'll at least have him in the conversations for MVP. So there will still be enough guys in this league that are talented enough, that are going to put up the numbers, and that are going to have votes from the media and the fans just based on their cachet, like a Jokic and a Shai, that it will be absolutely tough for Anthony Edwards to win the MVP. But there's no way you can sit here and tell me that it's not possible that he could be top 2 in MVP with what I just said in my last prediction, right? Let's say the Minnesota Timberwolves do finish as a top 2 seed out west, and they finish as a higher seed than either the Thunder or the Spurs or the Nuggets and all these teams. They finish as a higher seed than all of them but one. And let's say Ant gets up to averaging 30 points per game. And before you say 30 is crazy, no, it's not. He averaged 28.9, which is 29 points per game last year, while also having this and if he can do that, right, he bumps up from 28.9 to 30. If he can do that while also having this Timberwolves team as a top 2 seed out west, I do think that would be enough for, in theory, assuming all of his other stuff stays great and his efficiency stays as great and all-time good as it has been over these last couple of years and really throughout his career, I do think that would be enough, in theory, for him to finish as the top 2 MVP finisher. I love the team around him. I think he will make an impact defensively this year more than he has in the last couple of years. And even though he's always been a guy that's a fighter and a solid defensive player, I think he'll be just a little better this year because I think he'll need to be with his backcourt mate being LaMelo Ball. I do think a little bit more will be asked of him if he's going to be sharing the court with guys like Ayo Dosunmu and LaMelo Ball all the time. Not that Ayo Dosunmu is a bad defender, but he's not a great one, and he is a little bit undersized, especially if he's going to play that 3 position. So I could very well see this being Ant's best two-way year. I could very well see this being Ant's scoring year, a guy that has increased his scoring every single year. He's already one of the most electric players in the NBA. He's already one of the fan-favorite players in the NBA. He's already one of the faces of the NBA, and he's already one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA. So there's absolutely no way that you tell me just with a little bump and his team being better that that's not enough for him to win MVP or at least finish top 2 in MVP, because we've seen it happen with other teams where we saw Shea take his team to the 1 seed and not win the MVP, but then the next 2 years he comes back and he's just a little bit better, and they get the 1 seed again, but do it with even more wins, and that's just enough for him to get the MVP and win back-to-back in pretty dominant fashion, right? So, not that I'm saying I think Anthony Edwards is going to do exactly that, but I do think just a little bit of a bump would be enough for Anthony Edwards to at least get into the top 2 MVP voting. And then last but not least, I have Cooper Flagg making an All-NBA team and Kyrie Irving making an all-star team. Like the last one, I think this one would be tough to come to fruition. I think the last one will probably be the toughest one to come to fruition, but this one is probably arguably just as tough, right? And I think most of that isn't really because of the Kyrie Irving take. I think it's mostly because of the Cooper Flagg take, right? And that's because All-NBA means you got 15 spots. So that means to be All-NBA, in theory, you should be a top 15 player in the NBA or around there, assuming injuries and everything like that, right? Last year, third team consisted of Tyrese Maxey, Jamal Murray, Jalen Johnson, Chet, and then Jalen Duren. And while last year was a notoriously injured year, right, where we had guys like Luka and all these guys who missed the vote or were 1 day off from the vote or whatever, or were 1 game off from the cutoff and all this stuff, so those names probably wouldn't have been on there had everybody been healthy, sure. You can do that with every season. This season, there's going to be somebody that gets injured. There's probably going to be a couple people that get injured, so there's probably going to be 1 or 2 names that get left off of All-NBA just because of the 65-game rule. So, assuming a similar thing happens this year, there's no way you can sit here and tell me that Cooper Flagg couldn't be better than what Jamal Murray was last year, or what Jalen Johnson was last year, or what Chet does last year, or what Jalen Duren did last year. There's no way that you're going to sit here and tell me that Cooper Flagg, who came into the NBA averaging 21 points per game, who came into the NBA the best player on his team already, that he can't get just a little bit better, especially with the running mate to the level of Kyrie Irving back healthy and playing with him, because they did not get to play together last year. I think the Mavs are a good team, and I think if the Mavs are able to be like a play-in level team, or maybe just sitting a little bit higher than that, right? Maybe like a high-seeded home court advantage play-in team, so 7 or 8 seed play-in team by around the All-Star break, I do think that would be enough for Kyrie Irving to get an All-Star vote, assuming he's doing his normal scoring, where he's scoring 23, 24 points a game, and his handles are cool. He's got a highlight a week or so, and he's got the fans electrified and everything like that. I think that would be enough, especially because of the fan vote, for Kyrie Irving to be an all-star. But then we go to the All-NBA thing, right? And again, there's only 15 names that you can get on All-NBA. There's only 15 spots. So for Cooper Flagg to happen, he would arguably have to be a top 15 player in this NBA season. But the Mavs would also probably have to be a real team, right? Like I said, play in for for Kyrie Irving to get to the All-Star game and everything like that. And I do think that would be enough. But when we're talking about All-NBA, Cooper Flagg, they'd probably have to be like one of the better 2 seeds in the play-in, or Cooper Flagg would just have to be like kind of the carrying that team. this entire season, I think, for them to do it and still be a play-in team. Again, just because there's only 15 spots for All-NBA. But I don't think it's absolutely unreasonable to say Cooper Flagg can make All-NBA. Like I said, he already started his NBA career as a 21-point-per-game scorer, and that's without him really having a three-point shot that's really down, right? Let me put it into perspective. Cooper Flagg scored 21 points per game as a rookie with no consistent three-point shot while having no consistent guard play around him, and his team was injured for most of the year. So you're telling me that this year, with a healthy Kyrie Irving, a healthy team, a new coach, and everything like that, there's no way that Cooper Flagg could just be better? There's no way that with Kyrie Irving setting him up, getting him easier looks, and him not having to pay point Cooper Flagg anymore, that he could have a better percentage, especially from three? That he could be just a little bit more efficient, especially from three, especially after having just another year to adjust to the speed of the NBA, to the level of competition in the NBA, and everything like that? So, let's say hypothetically, Cooper Flagg, who started his career as a 21-point-per-game scorer, jumps up to 23 and a half, while continuing to be one of the better defenders in the NBA and one of the more versatile defenders in the NBA. While also, let's say his three-point percentage jumps up from like 29 to maybe 33 or something like that. I think that would absolutely be enough for him to have a legit case as an All-NBA player. Again, assuming the Mavericks are winning basketball games. Cooper Flagg is a guy that, like, he's very good, but I also want you to understand he was the number one overall pick. When you're the number one overall pick and you come into the league very good, they're always going to prop you up just a little bit more because the league wants fans to understand and market off of its number one overall picks. The league wants fans to like its number one overall picks. The league wants fans to continue buying jerseys, continue buying memorabilia, continue interacting with things when they see that number one overall pick. And the only way that that's going to happen is if that number one overall pick is good. So if Cooper Flagg just gets a little bit better and the Mavericks just get a little bit better, the NBA will want him to be an All-NBA player. And I think that's another thing about this that'll make this take a little more likely to happen, is because the NBA will absolutely have no reason to not be pushing a Cooper Flagg agenda. So yeah, I could very well see the Mavericks being a team that makes the playoffs after getting a play-in berth. I could very well see the Mavericks being a team where Kyrie Irving averages 23, 24 points a game, comes back, looks like his normal self, is doing some, to at least an extent, looks like his normal self, is doing some of those same highlight plays with the highlight handles where he makes some people touch the earth with his handles and does all of these things, and then Cooper Flagg comes in and is scoring and is playing defense and is being versatile and is doing all the things you want him to do. I could absolutely see that being an avenue for Cooper Flagg to make All-NBA, the Mavs to make the playoffs, and Kyrie Irving to make All-Star. So, let me know what y'all thought about this video, man. I hope y'all enjoyed my 4 bold predictions going into next season. Let me know if y'all thought they were bold enough. Let me know if y'all thought they weren't bold enough. Let me know if y'all agree or disagree with anything I've been saying. But yeah, man, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching as always. And please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All right? Peace.